Full transparency, trigger warning, I guess. I never thought I'd have to do that on a podcast episode of mine, but I will be talking about in this episode losing a parent, losing a pet, binge eating, family diagnosis of cancer. So if any of those are topics that are just a little bit hard for you to listen to at this present moment, I totally understand, and I hope to see you in next week's episode. Hello there, everyone. My name is Allie Virtue. I am a functional medicine nutritionist and the host of the Pre-Diet Podcast. This podcast is all about teaching you everything you need to know to make all of your healthy habits, wellness, dreams come true. I want you to be truly healthy, living your best life, working towards optimal health, and hopefully all that before you feel the need to start another random bad diet. There's no judgment here. It is just pure information, experience, talking to people, doing interviews, and sharing my knowledge as a nutritionist for 9+ years. And I like to think that I'm not really dogmatic. I'm generally pretty hard to offend. So sharing quite a bit of personal experience in this episode today. The topic of this episode is maintaining your health through hard times, whatever that is for you. I hope you never have to test your level of resiliency to this degree. And this isn't really a competition. When I was writing the outline for this solo episode, I started out with what are my credentials as far as what gives me the cojones to talk about this stuff, or, and I'm talking about this particular topic as a human, and as a human that has a significant amount of nutrition knowledge. That's it. Really, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a counselor. This is just sharing my experiences. I'm not saying that these are the hardest things that a person will ever go through. I think there's so many difficult things that life is going to throw at us. And I know there's going to be harder things that I'm going to have to go through in the future. But I do feel like I've built a much more solid, I don't want to jinx anything, but a much more solid, resilient foundation as far as my habits and as far as my mindset. So I do feel very well prepared for when shit truly hits the fan. So I am a nutrition nerd. I have a master's in human nutrition and functional medicine. Grad school is one of my credentials, but also I listed it as one of the hardest experiences. It is definitely in that category of hard times. And that holds true when I talk to other people of hey, tell me, about your history with health and fitness and wellness. When did you last feel really good? When did you last feel like your health was really challenged? And almost everyone says grad school or college. And that's pretty true for a lot of people. So grad school was definitely really hard. It didn't matter that I was learning about nutrition. I didn't have the best nutrition. In fact, that's when I was binge eating the worst. So that was definitely challenging in its own right. Before I started grad school, I lost my dad to a very long battle with cancer when I was 23 years old. That was definitely the hardest thing I've ever gone through. It taught me a hell of a lot, changed me as a person. And I can't say I'm grateful for that experience, but I think I've made the most of it. I think I'm very proud with how I handle it and how I continue to live my life given that experience. I already mentioned binge eating. That was really annoying, but I learned a lot through that experience, and I wouldn't take it back for anything. That taught me so much, and it gave me so many more skills to then share with my client than I would have without it. So I'm grateful for that experience, as tough as it was. My mom has been diagnosed with cancer 3 times, breast cancer, technically skin cancer as well. A couple weeks ago, I was diagnosed with the BRCA2 gene. So I have an increase. That's the same gene that likely caused the cancer in my dad. And fun fact, all 4 of his siblings were positive for the BRCA2 gene, which increases your chances significantly for men for getting aggressive prostate cancer at a younger age, which my dad had. My aunts, all of his 3 sisters tested positive. His oldest sister died when I was in high school of either breast or ovarian cancer. I can't remember which. I know she had both at one time or throughout her life, but she ended up dying of cancer. My youngest aunt was just diagnosed with cancer a couple months ago and has had surgery to address that. And then another aunt has done prophylactic surgery because she is positive, and because of her other medical conditions, her treatment options would be limited given her current medical conditions if she were to develop breast cancer. And all of her other siblings have, or a form of cancer. So that was fun. I actually figured that would be the case based on my family history. So I just hadn't gotten an official diagnosis. And I knew about this because my cousins were diagnosed when, probably 2018, 2019. And so they're like, hey, you should get tested. And me being a young 20-something, I was like, well, I don't know what that would change. I am healthy. I don't drink. I'm a nutritionist. I work out. I don't know what other things I would change lifestyle wise. I didn't know that screening started as young as it did. So if you have that BRCA2 gene. And breast cancer screening actually starts at 30 years old. I'm 34. So I could have had 4 years of screening already that's covered by insurance that I didn't know about. So that's one reason I wanted to share that. I'm not really a person that lives their life with a lot of anxiety. That's one probably reason I didn't want to get the genetic testing, but also I truly didn't think it would change much as far as my day-to-day. I did not know that you would start screening that early. I thought it would be at least like 36 years old or something like that. But turns out you can get an MRI every year and you can get a mammogram every year. And they're offset 6 months apart. So every 6 months, you're getting one scan, and then you get the other scan the next 6 months. So I didn't know that. So I'm starting that process, and it's covered by insurance. So that was good to know. But that was also kind of a little bit of a mind thing to deal with in the last month or so. And also just starting that process of like, hey, I need a referral to this, and just navigating the medical system. It's super fun experience. And then my dog was given a terminal diagnosis last Wednesday. He has metastatic cancer, several masses throughout his body. So, and I'm a human with feelings. A lot of that stuff is pretty relatable. But I do want to preface this episode that I have a great life. I love my life. I feel so unbelievably lucky. I'm very privileged. This is not a competition. Some of the hard things in my life are not going to even register. Some of the hardest times in my life are not going to seem even comparable to others. And that's me looking out as well. I'll hear other people's stories, and in my head, I'm like, Al, you should shut the hell up and just get trucking. Like, there's a lot of other versions of hard out there. But I do think the things we're going to talk about in this episode are very relevant. No matter what your struggles are, it's not a competition. What I find hard, you might not find hard, and vice versa. I suck at a lot of things, and I'm not good at a lot of things. I just don't talk about them all the time because I'm not that good at them. Just like you probably don't talk about the things that you're not good at. But we still do need to be resilient humans because people depend on us. And so that's why I felt like this topic was hard, because I think it's a great excuse to kind of crumble. But I don't want to do that. I want to maintain what I've built. I want to keep going. I want to be strong for the people around me. I want to be strong for me too. So how the hell do I maintain my health or healthy habits during tough times, no matter what your tough time looks like? Because it's not always going to be easy. There'll be speed bumps, bumps in the road, whatever phrase you want to use. I use this a lot with clients. Like, this is an expected part of the journey, and we need to know that it's going to be there. So we're not surprised of like, oh my God, I hit a pothole. We knew we were going to hit a pothole at some point. It's just how you react to that pothole. Are you going to really stress about it? Or are you going to like carry on and be like, okay, back to the route that we said we were going to go on. So I wanted to give you some tools that really helped me. And when I was trying to think about what are some bullet points that I feel like have really helped me, the first thing I think I'll always go back to is make your environment help you out. So if you're struggling with food at the moment, like, help yourself out. For me in grad school, I think all the time in grad school, actually, I was either at home living in England with my mom, or I was at home living with my mom in the States. During those 2 to 3 years, I was living at home. And my mom's retired and can buy really cool food. I would, when I was living on my own, buy basic food, very, very basic food, because I knew I myself couldn't trust myself with, food with no breaks, or like chips or cookies or sweets or stuff like that. And that wasn't the case. So my mom had a really cool pantry. She liked health food. She ate really healthy, but she also had a lot of sweet treats that I was finding really difficult to moderate. And my mom loves me and buys the things that I like to eat as well. So like, even if they're really healthy, protein bars or snack bars, like Lara bars, those were just so delicious to me. And they're super whole food and all the things, but they're still calories. And it was still too much. And I would still, every single Thursday when I was sitting down to do my homework, because my homework was due that night for grad school, I would just constantly snack and constantly eat. And I never purged or threw up or anything like that, but I would absolutely stuff myself and use food for comfort. And it was just like, I felt gross. I didn't like how I felt. I wouldn't necessarily exercise to burn calories, but I knew I had to keep exercising to kind of offset some of the weight gain. And I think I ended up gaining about 25, 30 pounds combined with the, losing my dad, and then also grad school, the stress of grad school. Did not handle that well. But when I was living on my own later after graduating grad school, I was still struggling with binge eating. And so I would modify my environment to help myself out. And that really was the catalyst along with some other strategies I've talked about before of like changing my identity or getting really clear about the person I want to become. That was really helpful. But changing my environment really helped mitigate the binge eating because I would just remove those things that I could binge eat. I'd still overeat on the healthy food, but I learned then once I could get the clarity of like, okay, this is easier to moderate with healthier food. It's not as binge worthy. I can stop. Then I could add another layer of complexity of like actually eating in front of the TV is also difficult for me. I would still overeat while I'm watching TV. So then I learned to separate those two. So really changing some of those environmental things and paying attention to some of those environmental things is so, so helpful. Just so you have those prompts, those cues in your environment to say, hey, remember, you said this was really important. Hey, remember, we have these, healthier or less palatable snacks, foods with breaks, foods that are easier to stop eating and not overeat on. Those things are really helpful. I would also say have other reminders like in your calendar of like, hey, let's have mealtime. If you struggle with feeding yourself on a regular basis. A lot of adults do. Also set dates for going for walks. It took me a while in grad school to really mitigate this. And if I would get acutely stressed or not know how to handle an assignment or whatever, I would go reach for a snack. And instead, eventually I learned like, hey, you need to go for a 5-minute walk. Just walk, not even around the block, just down the block and back. Like 5 minutes can really, really help my mental state a lot. But that took me a while as well. So programming those walks, I would also say programming or scheduling dates with friends to go for a walk or maybe go to the gym together. And it doesn't have to be your best workout, but just making sure that those habits stay on the calendar in some capacity, even if it's a lot shorter, a lot less intense, but we don't really quit on those habits. So set up your environment to really help you out as much as you can. The next thing on my list is hack the system when it's easier. If it's too much to tackle the root cause, which I'd say most cases it is, if that's too much to do right now, just focus on what you can control. So for someone brought up this, based on their culture, that a lot of their culture revolves around food and foods that aren't typically very healthy. Not a lot of vegetables, sometimes some fried food, some high carb food, some high fat foods. And he's like, how do I navigate that in that family setting? Like it's such a part of our culture. And I find it really hard to not overeat on it. It feels kind of like food addiction. How do I navigate all that when that's just like such a hard environment to succeed in? And for me, looking at it as a coach, I'm like, okay, how do I help this person feel more successful? And you just need to change the momentum. We're not going to solve this problem instantly, but how do I give them tools that they can do? For me, if I'm in the middle of a craving, I'm just like, oh, this is hitting me so hard. That's the hardest point to change that stuff. It's much easier to change what I do before or probably before, but maybe a little bit afterwards. You can kind of like build some awareness of like, oh, okay, I didn't handle that super well. Next time I'm going to do that. That's kind of the postmortem part. But if I know that a social setting is going to be really difficult for my client to succeed, usually I'm looking at before that. So with their scenario of like a big family dinner, lots of food, high fat, not healthy food or whatever, I'm looking at breakfast and lunch. So I want them to have a really square, solid, healthy meals at breakfast and lunch. And when I say healthy, I mean foods that make them feel good. So nutrition-wise, I would say like a big high-volume salad at lunchtime would be great because we're going to get a ton of vegetables in. Ideally, we have a good amount of protein. It's a big thing that also helps our eyeballs say, hey, I'm full. I ate this giant bowl of salad. I'm also going to make sure it has adequate calories. I don't want this to just be like chicken breast and lettuce because that's not a lot of calories and you will likely be very hungry later. I want this to be a solid meal. I don't want us to undereat going into that meal. Even though a lot of people will do that and save their calories for later, I would really not recommend doing that. Instead, I would make the goal for the dinner is like just not to overeat. We're probably going to eat more calories than we quote need, but the point is to practice a better version of that scenario than historically what we would do. If historically you would eat to 200% full and way overeat and feel way uncomfortable in your clothes just because you're bloated and all that, then I would make the goal of like, let's eat from 100% to 120% full. That's a win. If you can get 80% full, like wonderful. But I think that'd be tough right out of the gate to achieve that. So instead, I would just stack the odds in my favor. I would eat really well all day. So I feel really nourished. I have high protein, high fiber meals at the 2 meals before that. If I also wanted another layer of security, something that really helps me and my clients stay really full is a fiber supplement. This is more of a strategy. I don't want this to be an ongoing thing. Ongoing goal is to really solve the problem and learn how to eat in those scenarios and not feel bad, not feel guilty, not needing to rely on supplements per se. But a fiber supplement, one, it helps most people with gut health. If you have some gut issues, maybe that might not be a great strategy right out the gate. I would make sure that you can tolerate it before this particular scenario. Sometimes it can cause some bloating for people. I also want to make sure that you drink enough water with that, but it can really help. You're going to feel a lot more full. And then again, that will teach the person, like, I feel physically very full. I'm noting that this is a lot of the mental side of things, of like, I'm feeling a strong craving, but I know that I'm full and this isn't hunger per se. So all of that kind of sets them up for better odds, I think, of success going into that evening scenario. And again, hopefully that's just, giving them a better chance of having a better experience, or at least a different experience. Again, I don't expect 100% success the first time, but that's something that really comes to mind, is look at the system of habits, or look at the points in your day where you can really succeed. It's not an all or nothing thing. What parts of the puzzle can you control to your best ability to help make the other hard parts a little bit less hard? Just set yourself up for success. This comes to mind with the stress of grad school, and I was really relying on food to cope with stress, and very unsuccessfully, by the way. I tried to have exercise kind of solve my stress problems, and like, my stress was grad school. It was temporary. It was what it was. So this is kind of just getting really clear too of your source of stress, and kind of coming to terms with it, of like, this is a phase of life, I think can also be really helpful, just to kind of identify it. This also where like counseling or journaling or therapy could potentially come into play and be helpful to give you some of those other tools. Again, not my area of expertise, but I'm usually looking at it more from like a habit standpoint. But those tools are also really, really, really helpful. Third thing on my list is tell people how they can help you. I can't tell you how helpful it was when my dad was on hospice or palliative care, or in the hospital towards the end of his life, how helpful it was that people would make us food. And I know that's like a super normal thing or common thing for people to do. And I always thought before I experienced it, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cliche. Like, someone passed away and, everybody brings over a casserole or whatever. That was so helpful. It was unbelievable. And my husband, my dad was in the hospital for almost a month, or 6 weeks, not quite 6 weeks. So it was about September 1st, 2015, when I was in the States, and I got the call that he was in the hospital and having brain surgery, and I needed to fly home immediately. And I did. And then he passed away on October 8th. And he was in the hospital for most of that. I think he came home a week or so before he died. And that whole time, that was a lot. We still had horses at home. My mom was kind of working, kind of not. I think she stopped working once we realized the severity of everything that was going on. But we didn't really have a whole lot of time to cook, and we didn't really want to spend that time cooking, right? We wanted to just spend time with him. So people brought over so much food, and they were so great with, how do you guys want to eat? And my mom was gluten-free. She might have been dairy-free at the time. So we had some specifics as far as food, and people catered so well. Like, they bought us nice chocolate. So tried to like give us some treats that was really compatible with how we wanted to feed ourselves. And it was just so unbelievably helpful that, people want to show up and they want to help. And quite often they ask, I would say not the wrong question, but a question of like, let me know what you need. Instead, like, I would say ask very specifically, or just, I'm going to make you something. What do you want? Just be more specific with your questions. And so you don't put it on that person to come up with stuff for you. If they have a dog, you're like, hey, when can I walk the dog? When's the last time so-and-so went out for a walk? Can I do your laundry? Do you guys need the dishes done? Or what can I bring you if I were to buy you guys dinner tonight? And I'll just drop it off and leave. But, what are your favorite restaurants? What are your favorite orders? Things like that. Just being as specific as possible. That was so helpful, to the point where, like, when the food ran out and we had to start cooking for ourselves again, I was like, man, this sucks. It was so hard, but that was unbelievably helpful as well. And also maybe asking if the person on hospice can eat or can enjoy anything. One of my favorite stories to tell of me being a bad daughter is it's pretty evident that my dad didn't have very long left. He wasn't really communicating, and he really liked juice. Like fruit juices. And this was in England at the time. And so one of the supermarkets or grocery stores over there is called Tesco. And they had really good juices. It was like a mixture of like mango and maybe pineapple and orange. Delicious. Oh my gosh, so delicious. Love mango anyway. But he wasn't really taking anything in a while. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to have some of his juice. And then I think this is common. I haven't seen a lot of people pass away, but he kind of has this like a surge in energy or whatever. And he wakes up a little bit more and asks for juice. And he's like, can I have my juice? And I was like, yeah, I think there's some left. I had drinking almost all of it. And so I added I had like a smidge of the mango left, and I just kind of diluted it with orange juice. And I was like, my gosh, my dad's dying wish. And I drank all of his freaking juice. I was so annoyed, but also I thought it was kind of a funny story anyway. But ask the person what they would like, or if there's anything to keep around that might be helpful for them. I think that goes a long way. And this goes a long way as well, not in the worst of days, right? Even if it's not a hospice situation or medical emergency, something like that. Like, I'm sure if I was living at home and having a hard time, I didn't tell anybody that I was having a hard time with binge eating, but I'm sure my mom would have been so supportive of me if I had to say, hey, like, I'm really having a hard time with stress. Like, these are some really easy ways that, again, it's not putting it on her. Like, this isn't my problem, but people do want to help. So I'm sure I could have done that. And people would have stepped up. And honestly, my husband is great right now too. He's never had a pet before. And he's like, what do we need to do or what can I do to support you? And that's just, I don't always have an answer, but I appreciate that he's willing to do, anything that I ask him to. And he picks up the other things because he can kind of tell that, he can just tell I want to spend my time not doing as many chores. Happy to help when that makes sense, but I do want to spend time with him. The next thing on my list is take the percentage down, but don't stop. This is that no quit mentality. In the hardest of times, like we fully recognize, in the hardest of times, but quitting is still not an option. It can be super minimal. To be honest, when my dad was passing away, we were spending doing shifts at the hospital, being there as much as we possibly can. But I tried to actually look up the Facebook videos, and I wish I could find them, but I can't. But I was fully in the thick of CrossFit culture at that point. I think I've been doing CrossFit for like 2 years. And in the parking garage on the way to the hospital, on the way out, me and my sister would do like a couple pull-ups on like the barriers, like the big like steel beams or whatever in the parking structure. And we'd do a pull-up to like each side, or we'd do like a handstand push-up. Wasn't very good at those, but any kind of little CrossFit move. And yeah, you could probably say most of it was for social media, but it was a little bit of something of like, I can use my body. We would go for walks as much as possible. It was easier once my dad was home, because we could, I could still ride my horse and like go do a little bit of active outside stuff that way. But we still kept moving in some way. And even when my mom was going through her radiation treatment and I was taking over kind of more of the household stuff, well, because she was working still and driving like an hour plus to go get radiation every day, still tried to get a workout in. And that was a really, really necessary stress relief as well. Because I felt like, the grad school, managing the house, managing the horse, the emotions that go along with a family member having cancer, that was a real relief. And so I actually did spend a lot of time at the gym because I had to study. In that sense, it was a little bit easier because probably the prognosis was and caught it super early and all of those wonderful things. But it was different. So all of that to say, like, these things can change in percentage as far as how much time they take up. But like the point is just to not quit. And the same thing once I got back to the States after being home after my dad passed away, like I just got right back to CrossFit. My God, I do remember like the first workout back, one flying and then working out really hard doesn't feel great either. But I definitely felt really unfit. But also it didn't really matter because I was like, this is going to get better. And I just have to get that first terrible workout over with. And it's also okay not to give it 100%. It's okay to just like show up at the gym, punch the card, and like leave. You don't have to like give it your all, but like you just can't stop. You got to do it in some capacity. And that's why I think me and my sister did those kind of silly little like couple reps of a workout thing in and out of the hospital of like just proving to ourselves. And it should feel good to be like, hey, I can still do a pull-up. Haven't done a real workout in a little bit, but I can still do that. And that felt empowering and kind of a message to myself that like, we're going to get back to some level of normalcy. This is just a phase of life right now. It just is what it is. But The other thing that I wanted to add in, and I'll add this as a graphic. So like I mentioned, I did a talk earlier and that was geared towards more like corporate athletes, like how to kind of personify that. And I'm always taking notes of how to create like true lasting change for people. So I have 2 slides for this. So the first one, and I'll kind of describe it, but hopefully we can pull it up on the screen here as well. So the first one is true habit change. People really need to pick a strong enough reason to change and to make it pretty permanent. So I call this your big why. And it's hopefully kind of triggers a whole identity shift. So on the slide, there's a pyramid off to the right. That's kind of my hierarchy of how you do that. But also at the bottom of that pyramid, before you read any of the words, it's 2 pictures. And those pictures for me mean a picture of, try again. A picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So for me, those 2 pictures is one, it's a brand photo that I took from my business. So I see that picture and I see, a young, ambitious professional, and that professional knows where she's going. She wants to be an excellent nutrition professional, wellness speaker, all of those things. So I see that picture and I see my future and the future professional that I want to become very clearly. And so that gives me a lot of guidance of like, should I do this or this? It's like, what would that excellent professional do? They would do this, then I'm going to do this. The other photo is a photo of my dad, and I'm riding a horse, my horse Bella, next to him, and we have our old dog Pippin there too. And so that's like when I don't have a lot of photos of my dad. I'm not getting any more, right? And so that's a pretty pivotal, pretty core memory. I think that was like Christmas time because my horse has a little bow in our forelock. So it's a really cool memory photo for me. And so that signifies my family. And anything that doesn't align with my family and helping them and my longevity so I can be there for them, like that's a pretty guiding principle for me. That really solidifies my identity as a good professional and a good family member, someone who's really going to be there and take care of my family, but also take care of myself so I can be there for my family. And so if I look at that pyramid, it has identity and mindset on the bottom. So I need to get really clear about my identity, and that's going to keep my mindset kind of laser focused. The next one is focus. That allows the focus to get easier. So these all kind of like build on each other. So it makes the next step easier. The next level up is willpower and discipline. If I have a good identity, my mindset is clear, got a lot of focus on what those things are. Willpower and discipline, I don't need as much of those. Motivation, like it kind of comes a lot easier. I have momentum built up in a positive direction, and that makes my behaviors, which is the next level, a lot easier. My behavior is easier to change because I know why I'm trying to change it. The last one is results. So hopefully I get different results based on all of those steps that I've built and solidified for myself. So that's the first slide, or first kind of strategy to really create lasting change for yourself. The next one is a little bit more related to your core values. So if we can identify your core values in the pursuit of creating a healthier you, no matter the circumstances, even if it's a really tough time, these core values still ring true. And so this is why I really like this particular work or slide or kind of mindset to things when stuff gets challenging. Because it's really easy to say like, got a pretty good, I won't even call it an excuse. I got a really good reason to eat really poorly, to miss the gym, but I don't want that for myself. I don't want to spend all my time on those things, but I don't want to completely neglect them. I know that won't make me feel good. It'll make it harder for me to regulate my emotions, to just be a happier person, to show up for my family, for my animals, all of those things. So logically, I'm a very logical thinker. So logically, that makes more sense to me. So I'll talk about this second slide if this approach resonates more with you. But my core values: integrity, honesty, hard work, kindness, and resiliency. Those ones speak loudest to me. And I can use all of those to create that healthier me. So integrity, it's really important that if I'm a good professional, nutrition professional, I show up and do the things that I'm asking other people to do. It might be a 5-minute walk now. It might be a quick like 20-minute jog if my workout, if I'm feeling really pressed for time right now, but it can be quick and it can really give me more to work with, more, less stress for sure, but more energy to deal with the tough stuff that's going on. I'm so serious when I say like 5 minutes of you time can really give you back a lot of benefit later in other harder parts of your day. Honesty, just being really honest with yourself, I would say, of like what you got that day. It doesn't have to be a lot, but being honest in the sense of like, I want this for myself. I want to be able to still do this stuff in some capacity, even if things are hard. Hard work, I've always wanted to be known as a hard worker. So even if someone's looking out looking in from the outside, I want them to see that like Allie still works hard at this stuff. Kindness, being kind to yourself, being resilient. This stuff is going to happen. We gotta learn to still function. People rely on us, and we have to have a working, functioning body to still show up for others. So hopefully this stuff helps you. Like if those are so core to your being, that will serve you in these tough times, whatever the challenge is. All right, so my last tip, last kind of, call this a bonus point, because I really almost didn't add this. I didn't know if it would be helpful or not. But what I have found very helpful for binge eating especially, because I think that was probably one of my worst habits when I was not managing stress well. And it's kind of always on my radar as far as like, how is my relationship with food? Am I managing things well? So the question I usually ask myself is this truly going to solve the problem? Will this help the actual problem? Because I would tell myself stories that having another snack would help me do my homework. And it just was not true. That's not a real thing. So now that's a simple way for me to kind of fact check myself of, is this action when I'm kind of saying like, oh, I need some chocolate, or, oh, I need this. And it's not to say that we can't ever have that stuff. It's nice when we're going through a hard time to have like a little bit of pleasure, but one piece of chocolate is probably an appropriate dose. Eating the whole bag of chocolate is not going to make me feel good. It's going to make it harder to show up for myself. It's going to be harder to be resilient. It's going to be harder to sleep, which helps me manage my stress, which allows me, to make good decisions like going out for a workout to help manage my stress, all those things. Like it is a circular thing. So just being really honest with yourself of like, does this help? Does this solve the problem? Quite often these big problems, like not a lot's going to solve the problem. If it allows you to show up better, to manage this phase of life, sure. So that's why I added it as a bonus. It might not apply to you. It might not be applicable at all. But that is kind of a guiding principle or question that's been really helpful for me. So number one is see how your environment can help you out. Stack the odds in your favor, make those little adjustments so it's easier to do the things you want for yourself. Number two is hack the system where it's easiest. Don't attack the whole problem or the root cause all in one go. That might be too much for right now. So just try to control what you can control and make those first easy steps doable. Number three is tell the people how they can help you. Your people want to help you. Just tell them, give them some clues, some hints of little things they can do. Number four is take the percentage down, but don't stop. Don't stop. Keep taking care of yourself in little minute ways. Number five is ask yourself, will this action truly help or truly solve my actual problem? Or am I just using it to cope? Some tough questions, but I hope this really helps you out. These principles have served me really well. I'm sure they'll serve me in the future. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that I'll have to navigate in the future. And here's to keeping on. Just keep going, no matter what life throws at you. But I appreciate you listening. Thank you so much for being here. If this was helpful, please consider sharing with a friend or liking this on YouTube or following the show wherever you listen to it, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, whichever. I really appreciate it. If you could leave a review on one of those platforms or a comment, that really helps. Any way you can engage with the show, I really, really appreciate it. Because I think we're building something special here, and I really appreciate you being here, and I hope to see you on the next episode.